Hattie Hawks, good to see you again.
Oh, so good to see you. Always.
Yeah, um, and it's crazy. It's probably you guest hosted for us probably a year ago, right? Am I
Yeah, it's been a
timing right?
while.
It's
Time
been a
flies.
while, and I know we stay in contact and all, but one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, I wanted to talk about sort of by way of update, what's going on with your podcast, as well as some other things you're working on. I know you've got hopefully I'm going to get the wording right to describe it. You have retreats that you're doing
Mhm.
for primarily women, I think, and I want to talk about that. And then I've got some other things up my sleeve too, which I can't wait to talk to you about as well. So, how about a bit of an update, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, well, thank you. No, everything has been it's been good. Everything's moving along. So the podcast, The Rescue Room, I've been doing that for several months. And what we did was we started talking to all kinds of people about real life experiences that they were having, and how they were able to make it through because life was not about just falling down. It was how you were able to get back up again. We all
Mhm.
go through this. This is not something like it's some people are more comfortable than others in sharing what it is that they experience, but this is what we deal with as humans. And so what I ended up doing was like it started out as a sponsored podcast where we were doing lots of community different things, and then it kind of transformed, and I was able to revisit a lot of the more memorable stories that I had done while I was in news. I
Hmm.
had done a series called The Fighting 126 while I was, an anchor and reporter in local news. And those stories, for whatever reason, they just kind of came back up for me. And I started hearing from those people again. I'm like, you know what? You actually have a really crazy story. And since I've talked to you, there's been a lot that's happened like in your life. So let's go over this. And so I was able to talk to several different firefighters who had gone through cancer, some of them explaining that, well, one, I should say, is still living with cancer. He lives with cancer, but he completely changed his lifestyle. He decided he didn't want to do treatment anymore. He went a completely holistic route. And so he talked about how everything about his life has changed. And he's still here, defying all of the odds, living on a farm that he and his family created. And I just like
Wow.
all those outside the box things. And because like learning about all these different holistic practices has been a big thing for me in my healing journey, and just like understanding how it all works together. It's been really special. And so that podcast, what I am thinking of doing is rebranding it to kind of go hand in hand with mindful retreats. Mindful Retreats was a business that I started with my business partner and friend, Jen Harris. She
Mhm.
and I are totally different people. Like we when we talk to people separately and then they hear us together, they're like, it really is like a yin and a yang. You guys are like everything you bring is entirely different, and both of you think the other one is doing the hard part, and but you're just kind of like bringing what it is that we bring, and it's been working. And so we have been focused primarily on women's retreats where we all like we come together in one beautiful space, and we do two different kind of healing modalities during the day, which could be things like breath work, yoga, sound bowl session, some kind of exercise. We did bar, and we've talked about doing other kinds of things. We did a static dance last time. I'd never done that before. But it was
Wow.
a lot of fun. It was fun. And so we're just opening the door to all these different mindfulness concepts that people don't do in the regular day. But what we want them to do is to be able to bring these tools back to their normal life after they leave us, so that they can have a more mindful experience, and so that they can learn to calm their nervous system, and so they can understand what it even feels like to have a
Hmm.
calm nervous system. Because for years we've talked about this, I didn't even know what it felt like because I was so used to
Yeah.
rushing. to being stressed, to doing things for other people, for not even paying attention to what it was that I needed. And my body kept the score. And so what I want for people, especially those who are in these like high profile jobs, lots of stress, family issues, our cultures, very fast paced, hardworking, lots of anxiety, lots of like emotional and mental like issues that we're having a hard time coping with. Lots of technological advances that are also like scientifically proving to be speeding us up with them.
Yeah.
Our nervous system is really struggling. And so we're just trying to bring them back down to their baseline, to their calm alignment. And it has been incredible to hear what they have to say at the end of the day, because what they do is they get to connect with other women and talk about life's real challenges, which is healing in and of itself. But then they're eating healthy food. They're being cared for, because I mean, I'm there, Jen is there. We're holding space for the room and being able to navigate the conversations while also making sure that they have everything that they need, that
Yeah.
they're comfortable. And it's funny because we want this to be a healing opportunity for everyone too. And we've had guests tell us that they've learned more in 5 hours than they did in 5 years of therapy, which
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not a therapist, but I was like, yay.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were able to like find that here. And I think it goes to show how simple it could actually be for us all to feel a lot better, because if that can happen in one day just from having people hear you and relax with you and laugh and play and like eat good food like that, I mean, that's just, it sounds so simple, and it kind of is, but we taught them a lot about their nervous system and about how journaling works and how their
Mhm.
brain and trauma works, and it's just kind of this door opener to a different way of living and
Yeah.
understanding how to live, and which all about, because it's you kind of embody the mindful lifestyle. We teach a little bit of emotional intelligence, and it's just kind of getting their wheels turning to slowing them down so that they can make more choices that are aligned with them. And we are starting to look into the corporate side of things. So we've got corporate retreats that are coming up. They are on deck for this year. And we're going to bring essentially the same model with some adjustments so that it can
Mhm.
work in the
Yeah.
work atmosphere, especially if you're dealing with both men and women together, it's going to look a little different.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't mean that we'll necessarily like, because when it's women together, you're just going in. You just let's talk about everything. Just like you would want for men. Like you would want them to be able to connect like that too. It's gonna look different in a room of
Yeah.
men than it is women. But it's been awesome to see and very exciting to get to grow and then to see where it's gonna go. We're very excited.
Well, I can see why. And there's a couple of things that come to my mind that you were saying. And you and I had an offline sort of text communication. I think it might have been yesterday or the day before. And I sent you some song lyrics that I think kind of reflected some of the idea about when people find themselves in the, and I don't know if I use this word, but ditch,
Mhm.
find themselves in that kind of, I'm struggling here, right?
Yeah.
And so much of this kind of work that you do, and I think we're in that category too, we're trying to help people, right? But I like the visual of and I won't paraphrase the entire verses that I sent you, but this idea about that, when you think the battle's won, you hear the distant guns of all those fighting still.
Mm.
I think the crucial differentiator is, what will you do when you hear those guns going off and someone is fighting? You may not be, because maybe you had a breakthrough, or maybe you're adopting that mindful lifestyle, but you can't deny you're hearing in the back, there's these guns going off, and then I think there's the crucial decision, right? Do I hang on to my elated place of breakthrough and all of the rest, or do I turn around and go back and help somebody else?
Isn't
Now,
that the thing?
right? Now,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, Hattie. I'm not, because I'm not a dualistic thinker. I'm not saying it's choose one or choose the other.
Mm-mm.
I think you can be elated in your breakthroughs. I think you should be. And I also think once you have embraced that, then you need to turn around and go back where those people who are still fighting and say to them, or do for them, or do with them, I'll help. I'll help you. And maybe what I just went through is going to have something powerful for you, but
Mhm.
I am not going to ignore your guns that are going off, right?
I
And
can't.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So would you say, I'm stating all that to say, do you find that in your work, be it podcast, be it the mindful retreats, that it is about maybe taking what you've experienced and sharing it so that others might be able to experience the breakthroughs you have?
It's 100% all of that. For me, I think the first thing that I experienced in wanting to develop either of these things was the fact that I needed it to mean something. Everything that I went through. And maybe that's not even the right way of saying it, but I was like, no, there was a saying that I used to look at all the time when I was just like in the thick of it, just like deep, low, scared, very sad, very heartbroken, and just like desperate for something good to happen. And it was the saying of, there's a reason that God has allowed you to walk through these trials. There are treasures in the darkness. Don't lose hope. And there was a moment that I had where it's as if the lights had turned back on, and I realized, wait a second, my life isn't over. It's not over. It had felt as if it was done, like there was going to be nothing more for me. I was just going to have to keep fighting, and it was going to have to be this brutal experience. I was never going to get out of this. But the lights turned on. I was like, wait, I can create whatever it is that I want. That didn't have to be a life sentence for me. This doesn't have to be like a label of who I am forever. Like, am I a trauma survivor? 100%. Am I still going through some of that? Yes. I've had to really learn how to hold capacity for both things to be real and
Yeah.
true. And so, like, as a reporter, I was always doing stories where people were sharing what they were going through so that other people could hear it. And there were times where I would have to convince people, like, tell me your story because this does matter. People will hear this, because I get emails all the time from people who are like, this was such a good story. I needed to hear it. Thank you. Like, can you put me in touch with this person? So I knew it mattered. And so that storytelling part of me, I knew it mattered.
Hmm.
But then I was like, no, I've learned everything. I've gone through everything for a reason. What could that be? And so how do I then channel that? And for me, I learned so much that I never expected to learn. And I just recognized, okay, I I have to tell everybody this. Like, because
Yeah.
I was also like, breaking news before. I'm like, hold on, guys. Don't even know. Like, I didn't know this. Like, let me tell you. And of course, your excitement for something is not always going to be met with somebody who fully understands it. But
Oh
when
yeah.
when you can say, well, hold on now, let me show you. And then you hear them at the end of the day, their little light bulb goes on too. And then you hope that it's that moment that stays with them, so that they can keep going back to that light bulb and remembering that, like, there's opportunity here. And so, yes, I want to be able to to help other people because one, it feels good to be able to help, but I also felt a responsibility or even a calling to do that. And
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at.
Well, and that calling piece, and for those out there, and I used to be, Hattie, I used to be a very aspirational entrepreneur, to a fault.
Mm,
Um, so much so that I thought that, well, I dreamed this up in my head. Of course, people will line up and they will come, they will buy, they will blah blah blah. And what it did to me is it blinded me to the realities of that you're a business, especially you're a business for self. So you kind of gotta, I mean, again, this is the value to me of having a non-dualistic mindset,
mhm,
that says, yes, I am aspirational, I am a dreamer, but I also need to pay attention to the P&L, right?
mhm.
I need to pay attention to market forces, right?
Right.
And if you would have said that to me 20 years ago, it would have made me recoil.
Yeah.
I would have been like, no, I
Yeah.
don't want to, you know. But now, since I understand that, Eric, you as a soul, as your mind, it has the ability to hold in tension multiple things, and the two in this case are running a successful business and also fulfilling your calling,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And Hattie, I had this happen to me yesterday, and I've been riffing on this a bit. I think I even did it in the last episode. There's this song. Most people out there in the audience would remember Seal, and the song that he's most probably one of the songs he's most famous for is the song "Crazy." So I've got this remix of this song, and they did some really interesting things. But there is a part in the song where there's a voiceover from a guy, and he basically says, "What will become?" How does it go? Behold, no, that's it. Behold, the dreamer. And there's this pause, and then he follows it with, "What will become of his dreams?" Right?
Mhm.
I believe that describes my calling, right? It describes who I am and then what is to become of what has been put into me. That can still coexist with a P&L and invoices and all that comes with a business.
Mhm.
I state all of that, Hattie, because if you're too aspirational, and I've been around entrepreneurs like this, right? I was
Mhm.
one of them. You
Mhm.
could just riff all day long about the dreams and helping people
Yeah.
and bringing together greater this and greater that. I just want to be sustainable too. I want to
Mhm.
be around, right? And I believe both can happen, right? Um, so what's been a challenge for you with mindful retreats? And maybe and me set some context around that. Not so much as in are you making money at it or not making money at it, but more of hey, we're seeing a need to tweak this, or we're seeing resistance maybe from fill in the blank.
Mhm.
Anything around that?
I think the one thing that, well, in terms of how we sell them, it's we recognize that selling tickets is like per person is a lot harder than selling it to a group of people who are interested. And so that's also one of the things why like pivoting towards a corporate kind of experience is
Right.
also like, one of the ways in which we can go. And we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is, you know, women are tricky because they need this, but they are hesitant to actually spend the money on themselves in order to do it and take that time.
Okay, stop
The-
there because you
Yeah.
just said something that I think is really key. Is that hesitancy rooted around maybe a tendency to put others first?
Yes, that's like what it appears to be. It
Okay.
others first, feeling this urgency to have to do something else that isn't there. Like when it comes to stopping and taking care of yourself, and knowing that there are other things that you need to do,
Hmm.
especially if you're in these really high impact jobs and you're running around, you're always behind. So we're already behind and we're wanting to catch up. And then we hear all of these different voices, all of this, like, you have to do this, I have to do this, and never realizing that the one thing that's going to actually help you to carry everything that you're holding, not that you should be holding all of it on your own, because that's not the case.
Yeah.
Um, but learning a little bit about the impact that it has on your body and the emotional weight that you're carrying from not caring for yourself.
Hmm.
And it's hard to explain. No, seriously, if you just did this and you learn to relax and quiet the mind and slow yourself down, you actually may be able to handle what it is that you're needing to handle even better than you are right now, because you're
Yeah.
running on fumes. And
Yeah.
I think we all know this from an intellectual perspective. I think everybody knows, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, but the women, the determination, like, no, like, I got something in there. No, I can still do it. Like, the push is something that is hard to step away from. I mean, I understand it entirely because I was in news, and everyone in news, like, the demand of your life is there. There is a level of expectation. It's hard to say, no, I can't come in. If someone's saying something happened, we need you there, because it's kind of like all hands on deck sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's odd hours, and it's challenging stories to talk about. And it's just, so I understand what the demand can feel like, the urgency can feel like. And when you have this sense of urgency, it's even harder to relax than
Yep.
if you just had several things to do that day. Like, I've got some things to do, but there's no fire. And I think a lot of us are running around as if there is a fire, and most of us aren't firefighters.
Which
Uh,
is why we stay so long inside of the sympathetic, right? Because we're
yes.
treating virtually everything as this heightened five-alarm fire. And you know what, Hattie? I'm gonna go down a road that may make some men feel uncomfortable. So at least I gave a warning.
Yeah.
We as men have done a terrible job as the way that we have treated women. And I'm not talking about the atypical stuff that we hear about all the time. I'm talking about how we've created environments and climates.
Mm,
I think about a number of women who go into these corporate environments, these corporate climates, where it's made very clear, it's inferred that, well, since you're a woman, or, well, let me help you understand. And
yeah.
it's this arrogance that we've carried, that somehow we have kind of defined it to a place of where you can't find, in an environment where you're there a lot, right?
Mm,
There's no nurturing. And I
yeah.
get it. Men probably are uncomfortable with that word nurture because we associate that maybe with motherhood and babies. But nurture for me, meaning this is an environment where you can slow down.
Mhm.
And I got news for the men of the world who are running things. Most of you are not involved in anything that's going to make a lot of difference in the big picture of things anyway. I know, big disappointment. I know you thought that that new credit swap and insurance program was going to just change the world as we know it, but
Yeah.
it just isn't that. That's a story that we
Yeah.
created. You got promoted to be an executive vice president, and you've told yourself a story that you're really important and that therefore everyone should pay attention to you. Everyone should validate you. Well,
Mhm.
my guy, slow down. Why don't you examine that story again? You're not involved in negotiating peace with Iran. You're not involved with finding the cure to Epstein Barr. You are, and it's valuable, But I
Hmm.
think we've morphed into, and therefore, what gets left in the dust? The
Yeah.
nurturing environment, the place where a woman feels like, you know what, I'm in an environment where I can slow down. I'm in
Hmm.
an environment where I don't have to treat everything as a crisis, you
Hmm.
know? And I know it's not all on men because I know there's some women who are in power who do the same kind of stuff. I get it.
Yeah.
But but I think there's no denying in a male dominated society, we've done a terrible job in not setting up environments. And notice, Hattie, and I got this from you, I'm not saying I'm responsible for your nervous system. I'm responsible for your happiness. I'm responsible for your health. No, if I'm in a leadership role, I'm responsible for creating environment and climate.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what I'm responsible for. What Hattie chooses to do with that or not do with that is on her. But if I create an environment where, again, there is no nurturing, there is no room for slowing down, well, guess what? I'm putting cement in your sprinting shoes, right?
Yeah. It's like it's psychological safety. It's
Yeah.
baseline understanding of how your nervous system works. And I think that most people just don't quite get it because unless they're self-aware to their own, then they're
Mhm.
not going to recognize how somebody else is. And men have the issue when it comes to like men understanding women, it's that they've never been one. And like and they've been and they don't under say they from my perspective and from my experience just having talked with different men about my what I have gone through and like just working with them, they can't really know what it feels like to be in a woman's body in terms of the level of safety that we experience on any given day.
Yeah.
And women, we only know what it's like to be us. We don't understand what it is even like to have the level of safety that a tall muscular man must have when he walks into a room. It's just a simple difference there, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
physical safety in and of itself.
Mhm.
And then you throw in whether we've experienced any kind of adverse life event, whether it is some sort of assault, like sexual assault, trauma, emotional, psychological trauma, and you're dealing with a person who doesn't necessarily know these things about you, you may have a level of edge to you
Yeah.
that they don't know. You actually might not even be fully conscious of it if you haven't taken time to think about it.
Yeah.
um, but like that Maslow's hierarchy of safety is real, and having all of our those psychological needs met in order for us to feel comfortable enough to operate to the best of our ability. Like it's not about being a workhorse and just churning out as much as you can. It's
Mhm.
about like developing the whatever it is that only you can do. Being able to use your creativity is going to be better than, however many like files you can get done in a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so it's just it's being a person first and understanding the human being that you're working with. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be weird. It's an intentional and understanding that this is how our brains work. This is how our
Well,
bodies
yeah.
respond.
And you know what, Hattie? There was a day long, long ago, galaxy far, far away, where I did have a responsibility for the climate and the environment in which people were working in. And I did my best within the confines of the structure to do that. But there's an interesting thing. We had Esther Brooks on a show here recently. And one of the things that she said on there that I thought was pretty profound, she talked about love being the center point of energy that we should be pouring out to the world. I'm kind of paraphrasing. She was talking about there's all kinds of different types of love, romantic and friend and family and all of that stuff. But she said there's a real there's an importance for knowing someone and getting to know them. So let's use this example, right? The leader, and maybe he is a male, right? Okay. And he's got a staff of, it's a mixed, diverse group. And say there are a number of women. I'm not talking about the weird stuff, just like you said. No, don't go have a line, have a boundary.
Yeah,
But,
I
but,
get that. Sometimes I
you
think
know,
about that, but yeah,
right. However, up until that line or that boundary, get to know that person, get,
yeah,
get
yeah,
gain knowledge about them, and go where they allow you to go, build what you can, and then you can set that environment. You can develop your climate so that that person, and that's what leadership is. And I know this makes some leaders recoil because they're going, Eric, I've got this going on and that going on. I can't sit down and try to get to know everyone. That they need to do their job. Well, guess what? If that's your mindset, you're a manager, and good luck with that one in the next 5 years.
yeah. Like
Because,
retention and
oh,
loyalty. It's
all of it.
people are going to be more likely to work with those that they really enjoy, who contribute to their quality of life, because you spend
Yeah.
so much time, and so you don't want to be what is actually making it miserable. Like no
Right.
one,
And
yeah,
yeah, and I'm sorry. And notice, Hattie, I'm not advocating that you just let things go and just,
right.
hey, if Hattie doesn't want to show up because she needs to, and if Eric doesn't need, hey, I care about my people. No, accountability should be in there too.
Mhm.
There's no doubt about that. But I
Yeah,
think we err more on the side of not getting to know the human and not developing climates and environments whereby, again and again, I'm not advocating and saying that that leader is responsible for that person's health and growth and all that, but
yeah,
again, I just think in a minimum, uh that's vital. And I think, kind of bringing it back to her point, you should love your people. If you're a leader, you
yeah,
should love your people.
yeah.
And again, just for those out there who may be construing love as always romantic, no, I'm talking about a deep care and concern for the well-being of the people that you lead.
I
That should be
yeah.
minimum.
I think that we perhaps overcorrected in our like wanting to get rid of, like, because there is inappropriate behavior that happens.
Yeah,
There is
yeah, yeah. No
toxic
doubt.
behavior that happens. There's
Yep.
like there are all these poor behaviors that do happen on like an individual level. And I think the effort to steer away from that has been to no, now you must be like totally like non-emotional at all. And my argument is that isn't possible. Like we weren't created that way. We don't, like, I'll see people post about like keeping whatever's going on in your life at the door, and I'm like, good luck, because your
Yeah.
brain doesn't work that way. Men actually may be able to do that a little bit better just because of the way that their brains can compartmentalize. Women don't exactly get that. Like, we are different.
Yeah.
We are created a little differently.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we got so like, oh gosh, I don't want to make that mistake, or I don't want to I don't want anyone to actually misinterpret, to the point that they're like, I don't know how to behave.
Mhm.
And to be fair, I kind of think like a lot of people are growing in their emotional awareness, but I think there is a long way to go for people to recognize their own patterns of behavior, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel unsafe. How do I have this intentional conversation? So there is a lot of learning that goes into creating safe environments, because frankly, we're not used to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to pivot to something, you've kind of already been alluding to it at a certain level, but I wanted to, when you think about your interactions with women and the retreats, or even outside of that, what are some of the challenges that they're talking about? Maybe that go beyond things you've already mentioned. So what are some of the things that are keeping them stressed or up at night? However you would describe that.
Handling problems. I mean, any kind of problem, like how do I do this? And a lot of it has to do with connection issues, like real intentional connection. I think that it has become um, less common to have really strong connections with family members and people that you love. Like our friendships are strained. It's all a little bit more surface level because we don't have time anymore.
Mm,
Um, we're not necessarily taking moments for like the deeper level of connection that actually contribute to our ways of life and having those hard conversations and not knowing what to do. I mean, the things that our kids are facing these days, the
mm,
level of loneliness and yet access to information and social media, and then just it's almost like you're bombarded with all of these problems. So they have anxiety so much earlier, unresolved trauma where they're not talking to each other about certain things. They don't know how to talk about certain things, neurodivergence, mostly undiagnosed. And,
mm,
I'm not there to diagnose anybody. I just have my own experience. And so when people are talking to me about how individuals are behaving and I have an abundance of experience with that kind of behavior, I can say, okay, well, could be this, could be that, I don't know. But have you considered this? Have you considered that? And it's mostly um, trying to get them comfortable with the fact that like you can be intentional and say some things that they might think is weird. I think that's where we've gotten. And mostly with like older teens or early 20s. And we want to have this relationship with them, but we don't understand what their behavior is about. And the behavior
mhm.
is frustrating behavior. And you have a lot of things that you got to take care of already. And now this person is almost a grown up. And you're like, how do I keep managing these things? I don't know what to do. And so, like, we'll talk about how motherhood, just the burden of motherhood, how you can have these conversations, how you can reconnect. But I would say the biggest thing is just connection in general, and that could be with people that you care about, that could be with people at work, or even within yourself, because we get really disconnected from ourselves if we don't have any time with ourselves.
So is that a call to sort of strengthening the muscle of intentionality? Because, I know it would be great, and certainly those who are in the AI space would like to argue that you could just get it in a flash, but I think you kind of have to work that out, right? Because, interesting thing, you know, I have found in the use of AI that it's been a great tool at making me more efficient and getting certain things off of my plate that would maybe normally take me, X amount of time longer. But the key is, Hattie, and I'm saying this transparently, that I've got to be mindful of. Okay, so what are you doing with that time that you got back from all of the efficiency gains?
Yeah.
What are you doing with that time? And I would say, and it's fair, this is no judgment, because if it's a woman who gained, you know, 20% more time, yeah, you should be intentional about, hey, I just got back 20%. What can I do that's going to improve my life, improve my health, because now I have more time, right?
Mm.
And I'm not buying into the AI tech bros that are saying we're heading to a utopia where, it's just going to be magic, as human beings go, right? We have this thing about how we can kind of go off the rails with just about everything and anything.
Mhm.
So for me, I think the intentionality thing is key. Are you finding that too, or do you see it a different way? Is intentionality important around this?
I think, yes, I think intentionality is definitely important. I mean, I've experienced what it's like when people struggle to be intentional, and then I've experienced what it's like when someone is intentional, and it feels entirely different.
Mm,
You feel seen when it's intentional,
Hmm.
And when it's not, it's like sometimes it's just like, okay, it might be nice to have like just a little bit of connection. It's fine, like, because not every interaction is going to be like a real meaningful one. You see someone
Yeah.
on the street, you haven't seen them, you're like, oh my gosh, hi. Those are great too. You don't have to be like best friends or like a soul connection with everybody that you meet, but
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
always, I think that is, our relationships are a direct, like, it's directly connected to the level of joy that we experience in life. So to be able to have those meaningful connections, that's going to be what makes like the biggest impact. As far as AI goes, I mean, if you're going to get some time back into your day, then I would say like that's time for a meditation. That's time for going
Mhm.
outside in nature, getting in the sun, having a few moments where you can play with your kids, and have interest in what it is that they're doing. And like my son, he likes playing some video games now, and I kind of hate that because I'll tell you what, they love it. Like they don't just like it when they start it, it's they love it. It's addicting, and I'm like, I knew it would be, but like you like it, and this is such a catch 22. So I started playing with him sometimes, and so now I'm like a gamer. No, I'm not a gamer, but like I'll play with him a little bit, and that makes him happy. And like we're just sitting there, and he's a very
Yeah.
excited kid, so he'll be like, "Oh, mom, like let me just do it for you." Or he'll cheer for me if I can actually, find the chair. It's like a musical chairs game, and I
Hmm.
can't ever get the person to move, and he's just like, "Mom, are you there yet? Are you there?" And I'm like, I can't get him to move. I can't get him to move. He's like, let me have it. I'll get it for you. And,
Oh, wow.
and do I want to play video games? Do I think it's good for his brain? No. But now he started doing it. I'm like, I'll at least take some moments with you while you do it. So you know that I enjoy that you're enjoying yourself. And this is
Yeah.
something that you can have like some connection on at the same time.
Well, you
And
know what, Hattie, your point I think flows into, and you maybe have read the story about these people that quote fell in love with their chatbot, and then their life just derailed because they got so connected to this make believe, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
I think it's like anything else. I don't think that that means that AI is 100% bad because somebody allowed it to go too far, right? I think there's that strategy, and I'm going to come back to intentionality, right? There's an intentionality to know when it's too much time with the video game. There's intentionality to, well, you know what? I don't want to just cut it out. Maybe I can build some connection with him if I sit and play the game with him for a little while.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit to talking about something that's really been prominent for me, and this is about our storytelling in our heads, right? Because when you mentioned about the person who gained more time in their day and they should maybe a meditation or get outside in nature, get some sun, right? I can also imagine there's some people that are like, "Oh, let me just send another email, or
Mhm.
let me
Yeah,
I'm gonna go back over that proposal again
yeah,
because there's this story, right?
yeah,
So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Um, I I'm a really good storyteller.
yeah.
And I say that not so much in, like, how would I say it? I'm not going to proclaim that I'm really great at it and I should be on, some show where I tell stories, like I'm a great orator, but in my head, it's some of the greatest stories ever. And
Well,
some of
that's
them,
good. You should feel that way.
right? But
Yeah.
here's the danger in my greatest stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting how they protect me and how
Mm,
they talk me out of taking chances, very safe, right? And I've used this one before in other settings, Hattie, and this was the catalyst for me to really examine the stories in my head. So I we have various guests on the podcast, and typically I wouldn't say I know all of them because we get pitched from PR firms and, but in your case, as an example, I know you, so I can reach out to you and it's kind of low risk. Because
Mhm.
even if you say, hey, I can't do it, I know there's a reasonable chance that you'll probably respond back, well, what about next week?
Yeah.
Right. So it's low risk.
Mhm.
But when it comes to someone who I don't know and who may happen to be someone of great importance or great notoriety, and I'm not saying that the podcast needs that in order for it to be valid, but
Mhm.
I had a guest that I saw them on a different podcast and they said something really profound and it just went right straight to the heart. It was just like, oh my gosh, that's so profound. I would love to have them on the show. So, what's the story? Oh, they're probably not going to respond to you because, your show is not of that level yet. And therefore, you probably ought to, hold off on that right now. And Hattie, I could feel myself going, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wait. Maybe next year after we get to a certain of this and a
Yeah.
certain of that.
Yeah.
And then I decided I'm gonna hold on. Let me test that. So, Eric, how do you know that? I don't. Then how did you come to that conclusion?
Mhm.
And this was the part I made it up. I
Yeah.
made up the story. And I get it. My brain wants to protect me, wants to
Mhm.
keep me safe, doesn't
Yeah.
want me to be disappointed. I get it. Totally. But I made it up, Hattie. I
Yeah.
had I if you, someone who's known me for a long time, if you would have said, Eric, can you give me some proof of how do you know that? I couldn't give
Yeah.
you anything. I
Yeah.
could give you speculation. I could,
Yeah.
in some level, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, Hattie, how many stories have I told myself over all of the years I've been walking this planet about, well, no, that's probably not going to work. No, that's probably a little much. No, you should probably just wait. How many opportunities, how many relationships? And I say that with a small r regret because it's part of learning, it's part of growing.
Yeah.
Now, I would almost say that I'm examining my stories daily. If
Yeah.
nothing else, is a check in with myself. Okay, what stories did I tell myself today? Or try to catch myself before the story becomes this, oh my gosh, this all encompassing and going, wait a minute, I don't know if that's true.
Mhm.
I don't have any evidence that that's how they feel or that's what they're going to do.
Right.
So, long winded way to get to give me some of your perspective about the stories that we tell ourselves, whether it be from other people that you've interacted with or just even in your own life.
I mean, I too am an incredible storyteller. So we're one of the same. Um, and I think that a lot of us are. I think the majority of
Mhm.
us are actually very creative storytellers in our brains. Not everybody is a doomsday writer, but I think there are more of us out there than are willing to admit because you would never know it based on how we show up and how we act. And I have told myself stories that have really hindered my growth at certain parts of my life. There have been times where I have dug in my heels because I have known what it was that I needed to do, but
Mhm.
I did not want that to be part of my story. So like there were times where I was like, nope, nope, that's not going to be part of my storyline. That's not going to be it. And then what did I do? I really hurt myself by staying there.
Mhm.
Really, really, I did. And I in those moments, like I always kind of look at those as even like God moments where I was being nudged. I was being nudged. Do this, do this, do this.
Yeah.
And then, all the effort that you put into not doing it, then unravels anyway, you know? Um, But like on any given day, like I'll still check myself. And honestly, it's funny that you bring this up because my whole text thread to you yesterday was like, I need you to look at this because here is everything that's going on inside of my head right now. And I don't want it to turn into this. And you're like, I see you, I hear you. And that's why you're a wonderful friend to have because you're like, I get it. I am aware. And like there are some stories that are super subconscious where you totally don't even recognize that they're happening.
Yeah.
And that's the hard one because I'll have what feels like a total light bulb and then 5 minutes later somehow I'm like that wasn't a light bulb. I'll talk myself out of the fact that it wasn't. Like, no, I don't want to do that because what about this and then this, and then my brain starts going and it's like, okay, well, just hold on now. Like, maybe don't say anything because, the whole thing about like whenever you're asking for guidance or like wanting to know something or working ahead on something, um, you got to stop and you've actually got to listen rather than talk. And I'm a talker. So I will just straight up talk myself out of great ideas or
Hmm.
say, but wait, I've got to wait on that one because I have to do this first. I've got to get this figured out first. And sometimes I get that, especially based on the
Hmm.
conversation that we just had about dreamers, like how
Yeah.
unhinged it can be when you are
Hmm.
that
Oh,
nature.
yeah.
And other people are looking at you like, you're insane. That's not how it works. And you're like, but it's going to. And that belief
Hmm.
in yourself is important. That's great. But I've also like the book, The Tortoise and the Hare has come up to me like more than once in the last week. And it's about going, it's not about like the fast, everything happening fast. It's a long game. But some of the stories that I've told myself, I mean, we could go real dark with it. I won't go there, but I've had the life
Oh,
experience that has taken me there. Well, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to survive that? Like what this could happen. This could happen. I'm like, wow, do not go there. Let's not go all the way there. We don't have to freak out like that.
yeah.
But I've been scared like that before. And so if you've been scared like that before, or if you're someone who's experienced complex trauma, if you've seen, oh my goodness, I've talked to first responders and the stuff that they see, and then just kind of growing up in underserved communities and things that can happen that are more commonplace to happen. Like you can't help but revisit it in ways that you're not even conscious of it. So like that's the real dark storytelling that can happen. But then
Yeah.
there's just the storytelling that you tell yourself, like what you were mentioning, which is like on any given day, like having an idea and then telling yourself why it's not going to work or why it's not going to work right now. And
Yeah.
I've had periods of time where I would stop myself and then just still continue to work forward on it because really I think like some of that's just like your fear that's getting scared. Um,
Hmm.
and like I deal with that right now. So I can't even say like, oh, we do this, but you must do something different because it is a constant battle. Um,
Oh, yeah, without a
you know,
doubt, Hattie.
it's just
Yeah, and you know what? You're making, I mean, really good points, plural, but what you just said, right? And I'll go back to how our brain works. The sending of an emotion is a message, and if our brain is operating on best guesses, and I've heard that from Lisa Feldman Barrett, which I think is brilliant, it's going to give a best guess that, hey, this is the situation. Fear is the right emotion. Hey, here's this situation. Anxiety is the best emotion, or whatever, right? But thankfully, and especially when I look back over my life, I I changed the way that I thought. I mean, if I can say it that way, the rewiring,
mhm,
that we can put ourselves in a position where when we encounter opportunity or a problem, we don't have to see it like we did 20 years ago. That's not required. And our brain, yes, in the beginning will resist the change,
mm,
but it doesn't take a ton of time before the brain will start to support the new way of thinking, right?
right.
Our audience has probably heard this to nausea about my big one of my big issues that I had to overcome was the fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was rooted in a traumatic experience in my childhood. totally got that. But I carried that with me on into adulthood, right? And it wasn't until, and it was just my approach, I got tired of being so unbelievably tired
Yeah.
of dealing with this constant, okay, oh, they're looking for the exit. I know it. I know that's what they're going to do. They're going to leave, and start to go, okay, hold on. How do you know that? And is that true? Is it actually true that they are looking at the exit sign and just looking for an opportunity to leave? And yes, I get it. Some people will abandon you. That will potentially happen. That's called the human experience. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, Hattie, abandonment is not happening all day, every day of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't.
Right.
In most cases, it's not happening that way.
Right.
And I came to a choice of I've either got to change the way I think, or this is going to put me in really, really compromised position.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, in the beginning, I had those days where it would be like I'd get that story starting to creep up. Yeah, well, what about nope, hold on, stop.
Yeah.
And I had to do that. And again, I want to stress to our audience, this is the approach I took. Someone out there, you might need a therapist to help you hold your hand while you're going through developing a new way of thinking. Do that, please. But for me, this is the process that I followed. And, now, Hattie, do I ever get like the story starting to kind of creep? Of course I do. You
Mm-hmm.
don't you don't eradicate it, but now I know it. I know what it is. I know it's not true, so I'm able to adjust and pivot, right?
Yeah.
And I long for that for people, that they can develop the tools, the skill, if you will. And I mean, I know it's part of the kind of stuff that you're talking about with mindful retreats, this kind of our work in emotional intelligence, because I think those things, um, if we don't change the way we think, our brain will just normalize what it's always done. It's
Right. It's all
just the way it is.
patterns. And they're
Yeah,
not even all
patterns.
ours. Like they were passed down. I'm like, this ain't fair. Like we had, but everything else was passed down too. I mean, so
Well,
you
but
have to
Hattie, you know
recognize
what?
that.
It's like my temptation at times with my children, right, who are adults now, is like, I just want to say I'm sorry.
Yeah. I
I
already
just,
say that. And they're only 4 and 7. And they're
you
like,
know,
we know, stop.
yeah, well,
They
but,
will be emotionally aware.
but
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? Um, there's a lot of talk, and it has been for years. We just dropped the word leadership at every turn and corner, right? Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of books written on leadership. How should we be a better leader? But I think one of the most powerful types is the influence that a parent has with their kids.
And
And
you know
and I'm
what?
saying that
It gets
and
me
I'm
the
saying
pressure.
that I'm saying that truly from someone who tripped and fell a lot.
Mhm.
But it reminds me that, you know, your everyday behaviors and decisions, and then I'm going to kind of pull that back in from Esther Brooks about this being intentional with love
Mhm.
for people. It should help us to realize that everywhere I go, Hattie, every relationship, the server at the restaurant, the cashier at the grocery store, the friend that I haven't talked to in 6 months, I am bringing influence.
Yeah.
If we could get that, we might be a little more careful in how we treat people and what environments we set.
Influence and safety, that because you don't, like, I've had a few kids that I didn't expect these interactions to happen. Like there was one set of kids, these were friends of my son's, and I mean, I loved them. I did, like, and I felt their love for me when they would be around, but when I was no longer going to be around them anymore, like, I didn't expect it. There were tears. I was their second mom, and I had no idea. I had no idea that
Mm,
they had felt that way. I just, I wanted them to have an environment where they could come in, and if they were going to do anything that was against my rules, I was going to parent them just as I would parent my kids. Where I'd be like, we are not doing that right now. This is like, I understand that you're having a big emotion, but this is how we're going to talk about it, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And then I had another interaction, which was entirely different, because I've been working with some students, and one of them was having some behavioral issues. And I didn't really know what it was stemming from. Obviously, like, knowing everything I know about trauma now, you'd think that my first response would be like, okay, well, I wonder what's going on with him. But it wasn't. It was
Right.
because it was so much. It was so much. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he seems like he just wants to get on my nerves. But then I took a little second and I was like, wait a second, what's his background? What's going on with him? And then, so then I knew his background. And then I was like, okay, all right. Let me see if I can check myself a little bit more, because the way I would normally parent a child is not how I'm going to approach this one. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
He's also a different age, so I wasn't used to that age. It's all a learning experience. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a little mindfulness exercise with him and just like see, maybe he just needs some like positive energy. Let's see what we can do. And so I had him write down 3 things. Like, I had him draw a picture of his favorite thing, and then I had him write down 3 of his favorite things about himself and 3 things he's grateful for. I did not expect what he put down. It was actually heartbreaking, and it was all very baseline. What he wrote about what he loves about himself is that he can walk. One of the other things was that he could die. And right. Like, it was dark. And so I was like, okay. So I'm going to take this. I didn't mean for this to be like, cause I'm not a therapist, and I'm not working with kids who are dealing with trauma. I didn't
Right.
expect for it to almost mimic maybe perhaps an exercise that they might've done. This was me trying to bring a little
In the
bit,
moment.
perhaps this would be a positive experience. But he was very truthful, and like, this was it. And I was like, that's bleak. That's really bleak. And so, like, I'm sharing that to say we have no idea what the inner world of anyone around us really is. And
Yeah.
sometimes the poorest behavior is indicative of someone who is deeply hurt, but they don't have the words to say, I'm hurting right now. Can you be kind to me? They are saying, I'm going to get your attention no matter what. I'm going to throw this everywhere. I'm going to be mean to my friends. I'm going to climb up this tree. I'm going to do everything to disrupt everything, because I am so out of control that I can't be this person. So I'm going to prove that I am the person that you think I am when you're disciplining me. And I'm like, whoa. I thought yes, I literally thought, I'm going to try and work on some humanity with these kids, because I was thinking that they were having a little trouble. Turns out it was me. I was getting my humanity dose. I had forgotten some of what I already knew, because it's hard in the moment when you're dealing with really challenging stuff. And I give so much credit for people who work in that space and deal with like some of the darkness there. But I go dark sometimes, but because I think people can be in a much darker place than what we realize, and we don't give enough credit to that. And how we're able
Wow.
to show up. But it was crazy. And like,
Wow.
I just think about the teachers. Think about
Yeah.
the parents who have a hard time connecting, and they weren't like, what happened when they were younger, when they acted up, it's how do you respond? It's a whole world of learning how to be, intentional and someone's safe space. What does that even mean? What does that look like?
Well, you know what, Hattie? And as we are, I know, running out of time, but I gotta say, you're reminding me about validating why I changed up one of my prayers, my daily prayers, right? And I would dare say I don't miss a day of it, not because I'm so great at remembering, because I'm not, but it's now a part of me, is that I pray that I would play the role that God intends me to in every relationship that I encounter.
Mhm.
Because you couldn't have saw what you experienced coming. I couldn't have seen what I've seen in the last 2 days. But what I can be is I can set myself up to be ready to play the role that God has intended. Because once again, and I'm being fair to my audience that maybe says there is no God or that they're not sure there is. I know Eric well enough that I don't have the ability to look out into tomorrow and go, oh, I'm going to be meeting with so and so, so I'm going to need to have this ready. I can only go with what I know, and my knowledge is limited. I'm a human being. I
Right.
couldn't tell you by any stretch of what the next 10 minutes is going to look like. But what I can do, and I have been given control of, is that. What's the
Mhm.
role I'm to play? And maybe the role will be like yours. Maybe you thought at the beginning, hey, I got to do something to restore a little bit of humanity here, only to find that, you know what? No, the role you're going to play is much deeper. You're just going to be a soothing environment for safety. The challenge is, I think, Hattie, we go in kind of thinking that it's all about that experience on its face when
Mhm.
we forget, just like the iceberg, 9/10 is beneath the surface.
Yeah.
So,
It's so funny. Before you even said iceberg, I was thinking iceberg. The whole concept of like, okay,
yeah,
just go a little deeper.
yeah.
Sometimes we're a little scared to go deeper because we don't know what to do. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't act like a deer in the headlights, but I was like, okay,
Oh,
all right,
yeah.
hold on. I'm like, hold on. I
Well,
wasn't I
but you
wasn't
know what?
prepared.
It
Yeah.
comes back again, Hattie, that boy or girl, I don't remember if you said which one, but those guns were going off and you didn't turn away.
Yeah.
You heard the guns and you went back. That's what makes the difference. I don't think it's so much, and I know my gut says you get this, right? It's not so much that you've got all of the tools to address whatever.
Right.
What matters is, are you going to turn around? Are you going
Yeah.
to turn around and go where you're hearing those guns going off?
Mhm.
So, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks
I
for
always
having
enjoy it. It's
I
always a
know.
great time.
It
Um,
is.
I know we'll keep updated on what you're doing with Mindful Retreats and the podcast because you are in the podcast network too, which I didn't do any shameless plugs for the podcast network, but you are. And
I am,
eh,
and you will be involved in the podcast.
so there you go.
I've
It's
signed you up.
I've been signed up.
You have.
Oh my gosh,
You
thank you
also
so much
graciously were
again.
like, yes, obviously. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, for all of you in the audience, thank you so much for tuning in again. And as always, we look forward to being with you again. Thanks. Take care.